Uh, I'm really prepared for this call, but I'm not prepared for it because there's so much more I would like to do. But I will tell you this, I literally about have a brain cramp because I spent all of this weekend working here in my office. Now, I do that most weekends anyway. I do go to church, but now churches have been canceled because of this. So I spent all day Saturday, all day Sunday, early to late, working on this so I could do as much research as possible, because I have found a few things that I wanted to be able to validate them so I could talk to everyone about it today. In the process of doing that, I always do a little Facebook and the MeWe.com. I do postings on that. And incidentally, after this call, if you want to go to my profile page on MeWe.com, Thomas Mower, you will find that I have published some amazing studies on some of these additional things to look at to make your program work better in fighting the coronavirus. Now, in talking to people, I had a woman who contacted me and said that she was excited about it, but they could. Her husband had lost his job, and so they didn't have any income and they couldn't afford to buy it. So they were going to have to face it by themselves and hope it didn't get them. And I said a simple thing to her. Well, why don't you go out and recruit new distributors? You can make enough commission off that'll pay for all your products. And you certainly have time on your hands. Neither one of you are working. So are you going to sit around waiting to see if the coronavirus gets you? Or are you going to go out and help other people to get over it and earn enough money so you can buy yours? See, a lot of times distributors, it's amazing to me, they don't think about it. But a lot of our people are users. They're discounted users, so they buy a distributor. And they're not business builders. Or if they are business builders, they're expecting like a meteorite to come from out of nowhere, and the new distributor says, hey, I want to sign up in your company. I hear it's good. And they're not putting the effort in. But I will tell you this. In your lifetime, there's nobody in here that's old enough that could not say this. In our lifetime, this is the greatest overall crisis that we personally have had to face. Now, we've had World War II, Great War, of course, which surpasses that. But as far as all the other things that happen to health, this is the single greatest pandemic in our lifetimes. There have been a few more on Earth, the Black Plague, the Spanish flu, and some of those other things. But this one here with the Corona COVID-19 virus from Wuhan, China, we have one that has been, in my opinion, tailor-made. It's a virus, and we believe it's a number of people do, and I published some on Facebook if you want to watch some of those, especially a radio talk show host. He was on it, and I'm dressed in just a white T-shirt, but I guess you don't have to dress up if you're doing radio. And he goes on, he's very naive about it, but he goes on, he asks all the right questions, and they put together the most comprehensive thing, and I looked at it, and I could not fault any of it, and I agreed with everything and had seen everything that they were talking about, and they put it together perfectly. So if you want to review it, you certainly can. It's nice, in my way of thinking, it's nice to know what all the rules of the games are that can be done or why it came. And out of that, the thinking, now there's thinking both ways on this, but the thinking is the coronavirus was found at Wuhan in their virological center, which is one of the world-class centers, probably the world-class center for studying viruses, because almost all the viruses we get, all the flu viruses and numbers of others that we get, start in China. Why? Because they have so many pigs, so many chickens, ducks, things like that, and such a unsanitary condition that viruses just are abundant. And so every year when they try to give you a flu vaccine, they will analyze what virus they think is going to be the mini epidemic that's going to hit next year, and then they guess at making a vaccine to counteract it. Sometimes they're fairly well on. Sometimes, like 2 years ago, only about 10% effective. So they're trying to do those things anyway. But because of that, I tell you that because they have the big center that's there. Currently, we have a seasonal flu virus going around, and this is something you should be cognizant of. How many people have died in the United States? Now, I don't know what that number is, 1,000 or less maybe. I'm not sure, but if you look at Italy, they're now at about 7,000. How did that happen? Well, what happened is in Italy, they have a big fashion industry there, and they need cheap labor, so they have a deal with China, and they've been flying Chinese workers in like crazy to do the inexpensive work of making all the clothing and everything else that's designed. And they've even had direct flights, numbers of them coming from Wuhan. Well, they didn't close their borders quick enough. They weren't like the president was really sharp in doing that. He closed the borders quick, and we're not having near the effects that we would have had it been done even weeks later than what it was. But in Italy, they didn't close the borders, and now they're sitting there about 7,000 deaths. I know one day they had 400, next day 800, next day about 700, next day almost 700 again. New deaths every day, not infections. So that's how rampant it can be. So out of that, we have two things that we're fighting right now. And what they found with the coronavirus that's there, now understand there's 7 different varieties of coronavirus. The COVID-19 is one of them. But I believe it was, from what I've seen, I could be wrong, but I believe it was found in Wuhan, sent to Harvard, into their Department of Virology, where it was genetically altered with some what they call CRISPR technology to make it more viral, more effective, and then sent back to Wuhan. There's a really good paper trail to show that kind of thing was happening. And the United States, they came in and were investigating lots of Chinese money that was floating in to these major universities, and they don't think China doesn't just give away tens of millions of dollars for nothing. And they found one of the sources led to this professor who's over the Department of Virology at Harvard, and he was getting $50,000 a month and about $150,000 in living expenses, and had been receiving it for years. So they saw that he had connections back into the Wuhan Center with it, and they think they found the records that showed the coronavirus came in, work done on it, and it was sent back covertly, secretly. Well, now he's been arrested. He had 2 assistants, and they were both Chinese. They were supposed to be students, which they were registered as students, but they were both spies. And so they've arrested both of them. One of them is an officer in the Chinese army. The other one, they caught on a plane just as he was leaving. When they investigated the timing, it was perfect. They caught it on a plane, and he was getting on a plane bound for China. And in a sock, in his checked luggage, he had 21 different vials of biological germ warfare viruses that he was taking back to China, smuggling back to China at that time. So when you look at all of that, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but facts are facts. And so if you look at all that, you realize that there's some mitigating circumstances here. But the important thing for us to know is we have to face what's there. And that's the important thing. We have to play a game, or if you're playing cards, you have to play with the hand that's dealt to you. So we have this one to deal with. But the other thing they found in their studies was that many of the people who were infected with the coronavirus actually had been infected with the seasonal flu virus too, an H1N1 or H5N1, which is quite a virulent one too. And I looked that up in the United States, and we get so used to the different types of flus that come around and things like that. And I see that as you look at these and you see what's going on, you don't realize how subtle some of the rest of it is. Because in the United States here, let's say we have less than 1,000 deaths. I think probably quite a bit less than that. But with the seasonal flu virus, I looked that up just today, and there's over 23,000 people that have died from that. That just, imagine 23,000 die. Well, that's kind of what happens every year when they come in. Now, the one thing about the seasonal flu virus is they get more of the elderly than they do the younger. And because they're more vulnerable, because their immune systems are compromised and down and worn out. And they don't have the biology and all of those things to work for themselves. Now, I'm doing a lot of prefacing with this, and because of that, I wanted to put together something so that you have the information on hand, so you know what to do with this. There's two things. You want to protect yourself and your family. But actually, there is the greatest need for health products or dietary supplements that has ever occurred within our lifetime or within history. That's quite a statement. Now think about that. Never in the period of time you have lived in your entire life has there ever been a demand for products that could work against something as serious as the coronavirus. Yes, they've had things they looked at to cure polio, for example, and some others, and smallpox. This one seems to be is far ahead of that because of the huge contagious rate that this has and how many people that get infected so easily with it. So out of that, what I've tried to do is put together everything that could work for you so you understood it, and that's why I wanted to come back to you. So let's face the facts of what medicine says. And you can see the CDD, or CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and WHO, the World Health Organization, are both saying, well, there's no virus for it, there's no cure for it, nor any medications for it. And their statement is the only thing between you and the virus is your immune system. Well, that's true if you don't have anything, do anything, know anything with it, but we do know and have a lot of the things that can really support your body's biology. So it'll become a powerhouse. You can, in practical terms, and it's a little flamboyant, but you can literally bulletproof yourself against this virus. You don't have to kill it. You don't have to medicate it. You don't have to vaccinate for it. There are other things that will work. And if you do get it, then there's some things you can do to greatly mitigate the effects of it. Now, if you had the flu and that, do you think people wouldn't tell you, doctors say, yeah, drink a lot of water, drink a lot of juices? Of course they would. Those are normal. But we're going far beyond that. We're going into the realms of real scientific research on natural ingredients that have profound abilities to support the body in its fight against this particular or other viruses, including the seasonal virus that comes. And one of the worries with the CDD is, or CDC says that, well, you got a double whammy. You got the coronavirus and the seasonal virus, which is H1N1, and it's the swine. And now we've got H5N1 coming. And so you may have a triple threat. And certainly they found that in China and some of the other places. A lot of people had both viruses operating in their body at the same time. Well, that's a lot to be concerned about, isn't it? So if you don't have any of those medications that can prevent it or cure it or medicate it, then you can try wearing a mask. Well, masks just aren't effective enough because these disposable masks, they're too porous. And so the the virus, which is very small, goes through it. And I read an article about a doctor, and he was talking about, well, you can cure this because all viruses have, coronaviruses have one thing in common, flu viruses, and that is they get into the nasal passage and sinus passages, and that's where they replicate because it's a warm, but moist environment, a little more cool with the air being breathed in and out. So this doctor went an extensive thing, trying to show his expertise in saying you should operate with a hair blower, putting hot air up there so you raise the temperature and kill them off. Well, that's been tried over the number of years. He's not the first one to think about it, and there's a certain reasonable logic to it, but the tests haven't shown that it's been very effective because you have to get it all because they replicate so fast, and he's just trying to capitalize on the situation. Well, we have a situation here, and we should capitalize on it because there are so many people that need so much help, and you can do so much. And really, from a business standpoint, you'll never see an opportunity with so many people interested in something you have to sell them, and it can bring them into the company. So it's a double-edged sword here. We're doing a great deal of good, and in the process of it, just like you go into the doctor's office, they charge you. You go in the hospital, they charge you with that. You buy these products, we charge you for it, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially in a crisis like what's here with it. So anyway, if you're going to buy a face mask, there's only one. I'll just give you one bit of advice to buy. They're hard to get, but get an N95 face mask. They only have a small orifice, and it's very finely filtered, and they think they can keep most of the viruses out. Unlike what this doctor was saying with his hair dryer up the nose solution, this is not the same. He said they're all the same. Well, shows you how unknowledgeable he is to make such a statement, because the COVID-19 virus is not the same, and it doesn't exist. And if you have the sniffles and you sneeze, guess what? You don't have this coronavirus. What you have is the seasonal flu, because this one doesn't get into the sinuses in that. But what it does get is into your lungs, and the lungs is the only place that it works. And when it gets into the lungs, it penetrates and bores through your cell membranes of the host cell and starts to inject RNA and DNA from the virus down into the host cell, where they reproduce into the thousands and kills the cell and explodes, and they all go to other cells attached to it, kill them, they explode. And eventually, I think most of these people end up literally bleeding to death because of the damage that's done to their system, or they get pneumonia so bad from it. This is the one thing they do talk about. This is a viral pneumonia, but people hemorrhage to death, at least the number that I have seen on this kind of thing, because the tissues are so damaged, there is so much inflammation that it just ruptures the systems. And so those are things you're fighting with. Now that kind of scares you a little bit, doesn't it? But I think there's an answer. Or if it's not a complete answer, I think it's the most complete one that can be found. And no other company I haven't seen anybody that's got anything like this. You've seen some companies been selling some products, and some of them have been making outrageous claims. We can't make outrageous claims. We can't say it prevents, cures any disease, or does a structure-function claim. That's the way the FDA has it if you're going to make a statement. And if you want to make a statement like that, you have to go through a prescription drug trial, which takes, on average, about 13 years and costs $1 billion or $2 on it on top of that. So with all of that, you get an effect that is one that you need an answer to it. And I think with this is the answer that we have. So right now we have a line of products called Mega Immune. We designed the Mega Immune pack with all these products in it. We didn't quite get them all into it because there's some other technologies that are involved. And so what we have decided, you can still buy the pack and you get a little bit of discount, and a reasonable discount if you buy the pack on top of it. But what we're finding here in the company is we're getting such huge demands for the individual products that if you're short a product, then you're back ordered on the Mega Immune. We've just decided we'll ship the Mega Immune packs if they are ordered and we have it, but if they have to be held in back order until everything's there, yeah. But we'll ship the individual products no matter what they are, as long as we have quantities in it. So if you want a product like Influence or Fucoidin or Body Shield or any of those, the Terminator, you can get all of that. So as a consequence, we're going to allow you, well, you allow you anyway, to buy all these products. But I want to tell you about what they do, and I want to tell you what some of the alternatives are. The first thing is they say the best prevention is to wash your hands. Well, that's because most viruses are on contact. You sneeze, and it deposits on a surface, lives there for a little while, and that's why on cruise ships they have it such an epidemic, because people are going up the same rails and in the stairs and holding on to the same things, and somebody has the flu just contaminates it as you go along. Other people pick it up, and it just it compounds upon itself with what it's doing. So you have that kind of thing going on, and they say, well, the best defense is hand washing. Well, I can agree with that to a certain point, but you got to remember that this type of coronavirus is really aerosol. It can be transported in the air, and it lives for at least 3 minutes, they know, in the air. And so if you're around somebody and they're breathing, if they're sneezing, that's the seasonal flu. But if they cough, that comes out of about 100 miles an hour, or is about the speed that it comes out, and it'll hang in the air for at least 3 minutes. So if you're breathing the air, and when you breathe it in, that virus is airborne. You breathe it in, where does it go? Into the lungs. That's the part of the body that it attacks. So you've got a very difficult situation. And the other thing that's so bad with the coronavirus is it has a 14-day incubation period. During that incubation period, normally incubation periods in viruses, they're not contagious. This one is the exception. Remember I said it's different than the other one. This one is highly contagious during that period of time. There's lots of people who have been diagnosed with the virus because they've got tested for it just to be checking, and they found out they have it, but they've not had any symptoms. But people all around them have been getting the virus because they've been contaminating them. So those are hard things to work with when you consider that. It isn't like normally the incubation period is 1 to 2 days for a virus, and then you see the effects of a fever and all that. With this one, you can see the effects or not, and it can go on. And the effects you really look for with it is real bad headaches, coughing, not sneezing, coughing, and fever. Those are the things you see. And when it hits your body, from what people are saying, it is like being run over by a truck. It's not like the aches and pains you feel with the seasonal flu. This is really serious stuff when it hits the body, because it's affecting the lungs, which provides the oxygen to all the parts of your body. And those situations of the inflammation this creates is creating so much damage in circulation and in the health of the product, and it starts inflaming, it starts infesting, and then you get the pneumonia, and that's the result of it. So washing your hands, so we get back to that, that's the best thing to do. But now the problem, they tell you, problem as I see it, it's a human problem, a psychological one, is they say in order to get the virus, you've got to wash your hands for 2 to 5 minutes. Well, are you going to stand at a sink and wash your hands for 2 to 5 minutes to make sure it's that thorough to get the virus off? I don't think we just not of a nature to do that. I'm unseen. We'll think, well, we put soap on, we've washed our hands, we've done it, rinse it off. But what they're saying, to get it, you got to wash your hands 2 to 5 minutes. Well, I think for most of us, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. So what we've done is inadvertently we just developed cucumber lime. And cucumber lime is a great hand wash. But we empowered it with organic fulvic acid and with ionic silver. Both of those have a great support factor against viruses. And so as a consequence, here's a hand wash. You wash your hands, just do it somewhat thoroughly, rinse them off. There's even a little bit of residual that'll be left, which is good for it. And now you don't have to go through that laborious time washing. You should wash your hands thoroughly, of course. But with the power of cucumber lime, you have a big bonus factor going for you. The second thing is we have Terminator, which happened to be our mouthwash, but it's only a name. It could be a mouthwash. It's actually the ingredients of what they call stabilized chlorine dioxide, and it's extremely powerful against any type of microorganisms I've seen, including viruses and broad spectrum viruses, and they use it in a number of places to actually treat potable water, drinkable water. And they can take water that's contaminated with microorganisms and things that are precipitating that and put stabilized chlorine dioxide in it, and that water becomes drinkable, and in a very short period of time, just enough to stir it and mix it through, and it's drinkable. Now, that's pretty remarkable, and that's what it's being used for in lots of different places. But I found out years ago that it would also have the property to break down what they call a disulfide bond and what that sulfur bond, and that's what plaque is. So I put it in for that too, and then with it, while I can't make a sanitization claim because I don't want to go through that 13 years and spend $1 billion to get it done, I can just make it. You can say that the mouth, as you rinse with it, it can become more sanitary. So I can't make a claim that the ingredient does, but you have the right to look up the ingredients and see. And some of the things that I'm putting on MeWe are studies that will validate what this is. And the law, DSHEA, Dietary Supplemental Health Educational Act, allows us to present studies as long as they're not attached to our advertising material. So you can read them. They're in the public domain anyway. You should have the right to read them. And then you can make your own conclusion about the product that contains them, whether to use it or not. So that's how we have to play the game here, but it's very effective. So you have Terminator. And think about this. We put it in a 2-ounce bottle, and you can also buy a large 16-ounce. Large 16-ounce you might want to get and put a sprayer on it. Then you can spray countertops easily, and it's just a wipe across and wipe off. It is so fast acting that it can purify that surface for you quickly in what it does. So, and then we have the 2-ounce, because you can carry that with you anywhere you can go. It can fit into a pocket, easily fit into a purse. And so if you go anywhere, if you're dealing with any people or you touch any knob, you can just take it out, spray your hands, wipe it around it, and just let it air dry. And when it air dries, your hands are going to be all purified, and you're going to go about what you're doing. If you go into a restroom, how many people in a restroom, they touch the handles, the faucet, toilet seat, anything like that, and you can take the Terminator and you can spray it on those surfaces to purify it from all the accumulation or contamination is how we probably ought to say it, all the contamination that's there. So we're still not making a claim, we're just purifying it from the contamination, but it's very effective to doing a toilet seat. But if you and a faucet, but if you did treat a toilet seat, if you treated a faucet, if you wash your hands and then you sprayed Terminator on it, if you touch the handle on the door going out, guess what? You can be contaminated again with it. And the bad thing about the coronavirus is they know it has a residual effect on surfaces for up to 9 days so far. Maybe one study showed possibly up to 30. But before it dies, usually the virus dies in just seconds on an inanimate object, but not with a corona. It's designed, that's probably the right term, to be residual on those types of surfaces. So if you spray, if you touch the doorknob, you could spray the doorknob and touch it, or after you got out, just spray your hands and rub it around and let it air dry. Hey, no harm, no foul, and you've got purified hands to go about it. So since there's no vaccine, what are you going to do? Then the virus gets into your body through contact or from breathing. Remember, this is airborne, and it lodges in the lungs, so that's a very easy way. That's why people can get it just by, and they're giving you the rule, stay 4 feet away from anybody, because of the fact that the breath, it lasts in the air for 3 minutes, and the breath can breathing it out, and you can be breathing in. All you need is one of the viruses to get into your lungs to impregnate it and start to replicate, and you're off to the races, unfortunately, with that. But the viruses, or the vaccines are designed to create antibodies in the immune system. Those antibodies will hunt out that particular, they attach to the immune system. Then they hunt out whatever type of virus those antibodies are designed for in the vaccine, and then they kill it. So it's kind of like a homing device on it, and they come in to do that. But that's after the fact. But here's the better way, in my opinion. Consider this. Where do most viruses come from? Well, they come from the soil, filthy conditions. So then they're transferred to animals, and they're transferred to us. But that's the chain that happens. So if the soils are so contaminated with viruses, how do plants survive? Because many viruses can destroy plants, and some of these very dangerous ones, how are they kept out so the plant doesn't absorb them? Well, it's kept out, we believe, this is our theory, and some other people that are involved in science and researchers that have been doing totally independent science and research on fulvic acid and humic acid, which are left from ancient deposits of vegetation that grew for tens of millions of years, and the water, because they're very water soluble, fulvic acid and humic acid, and the water solubilized it and drained it out from the mass of decaying vegetation, which decayed away. But it went in a few places, it went down and flowed in, particularly here in the Rocky Mountains we have it because it's fairly new range as far as mountains go. But there's some basins that had a type of clay in it, and the water would flow into it, and then when the water evaporated, it was very rich in fulvic acid and humic acids that are there, or humates with it. So those can be refined, and they have a profound effect. I started using it years ago, and I brought it out I started using it because it's how plants absorb nutrients. So I put it in a Spectromax, actually type product, even my previous company. Of course, we have it in Spectromax now because it has the potential to greatly increase the absorption rate. In fact, it's like on inorganic minerals. It takes it from, 2 or 3% to 91, 97% absorbable. Makes a huge difference. But here's the thing that happens with virus. Viruses have to attach to a cell. How do they attach to it? Well, you can think of it kind of like Velcro, if that's a good analogy for you. And if you put Velcro to Velcro, it bonds, doesn't it? So a virus comes along, and they have all these spiny features, and on the ends of those are little cup-like extensions, and they are coated with substances, structures that are sticky. It's sort of like a Velcro, but it's sticky in several ways. The one thing about it, it has a negative magnetic charge. Now, it's a negative polar charge is how they would say it with it. And the negative charge will attach to a positive. So just like in magnets, where opposites attract, it's the same thing here. This is principle of polar magnetism. But with that, when it comes to the contact with the surface of the human cell, the host cell, that has a positive. So they come together like Velcro, and it's there. Then the virus bores down through it and starts injecting huge amounts of RNA and DNA until it kills the cells, and those viruses go about, and that's why thousands of them from a cell. That's why the flu can hit you so hard and so fast, because it replicates at an enormous rate. But plants don't absorb those viruses, we believe, because of organic fulvic acid in the soil. And without organic fulvic acid, there would be no life on Earth. That's how plants convert the solar radiation and the nutrients to be absorbed. So it has the power of hydrogen in it, so it's very powerful. So organic fulvic acid has a positive polarity or electromagnetic charge, a positive electromagnetic charge that greatly, and there's different ranges of power in them, just like a horsepower in a car engine. You know, you have two cars pulling against each other. Which one's got the best horsepower is going to pull the other one. Well, it's kind of that same way. But the enormous positive electromagnetic charge that is on fulvic acid attaches to that weaker negative charge that's found on the viruses, and what it does is it just effectively coats it. And when it coats it, it's like encapsulating those surfaces. Now they can't bond because the bonding has already been satisfied, already been done by a natural process with an ingredient that is much stronger than it. In fact, it's what studies have even shown is organic fulvic acid. If somebody has viruses attached to the cell, the magnetic power of it is so great that it will pull the virus off and bind to it even off the cell. Now, what's down in the cell, can't do anything about that. That's going to replicate. But if you've got that in your body as viruses come out, you have the ability, this is the potential. Again, without the studies, you can't say it does it, but this is the potential. This is what we hypothesize, that it can attach to all of these receptors. And that's why a virus has all these spines, because no matter which position it's in, if it contacts a host cell, it will magnetically attach to it. But if organic fulvic acid is there, it is so much more powerful, and it just grabs those viruses and encapsulates them. Then what does it do? Kill them? No, it just holds them. They can't replicate. They can't go any further, and they have a normal lifespan, which they will die, which is usually about a day and a half to 2 days that one will die, but it'll be held completely that way and cannot replicate. So that is a marvelous thing, and in my opinion, that just knocks the dog out of a vaccine, which is waiting to search and destroy types of organisms that are there, or viruses that are there, and especially where they are specific to a certain strain of virus. Or organic fulvic acid is not specific to any strain. It is prolific in that it will bond to every strain of virus that they've found. And they've done lots of research on things like HIV, Ebola, things of that nature, and they find organic fulvic acid will bond to them, keep them from replicating. Now, we can't make claims that it does anything, but that's what the study on the ingredient and those kind of conditions show. So you make your own conclusion with that. But here, Body Shield has the power of the sun, has this extremely powerful electromagnetic charge that should, in theory, bond to all the viruses, tie them up, encapsulate them so they can't replicate. So who has that? Well, I can tell you real quick. The name is Sizzle. We got it in our Body Shield. I use it because it also annihilates radiation. And when Japan had that big meltdown, That's when I first brought the product out, because I knew from Chernobyl, from the Russians, I've done business in Russia for 30 years, and they use fulvic acid to neutralize all the radiation, whether it was on the ground or plants or buildings or animals took it and ingested it, because it would annihilate radiation. So that was why I had it. But the other thing, in learning of it and in doing it, I saw what it would do with viruses, where it would coat it. But it's the kind of thing you just can't hardly promote it, because if people aren't experiencing anything, yeah, it sounds okay, maybe do it. But now the one thing that has happened with this coronavirus, it smacked us right across the face, and we can see what it does. And now to bring something out like this is so meaningful and so powerful. And if the world knew what it was, like science does, but because it's a natural ingredient, it can't be made as a prescription drug, so big pharma, big medicine won't put the money into getting approvals on it, plus that takes years with that. And they say the vaccine won't be out for a year, year and a half, so do we wait that long while this thing goes round and round and round? And they also found that the coronavirus can now turn around and go dormant, and then it's a retrovirus, and it can come back the following year from being in your body. With that, well, you need a large degree of protection there. And what you have with the fulvic acid is, dormant or not, it's going to bind to the receptors, so it's now neutralized and can't bind to the host cell. So now with that happening, there we have a first line of defense that is far ahead of even what I think a vaccine is, because it's not killing, but it's just binding and encapsulating. Then we have influence, which is a variety of many different types of ingredients, all to take your immune system, which is deteriorated and less functional with age, and to supercharge it with all the energetics for a viral fighting system, just like, calcium builds bones and protein builds muscle. Well, this is what this product does too, is it supports the building of a very healthy, aggressive immune system. So you have influence there. Now, if you really have got, and it's getting bad, then you need two big whoppers that come out, and one of them's fulcoidin, which has enormous power. And even sometimes with these infections where they're viral, they will tend to even get sepsis. And sepsis is, once you get sepsis, you've got like minutes or less than an hour or so to live if it gets to be that point. But fulcoidin is very good with that. But so is influence, and so is Body Shield in putting out lines of defense ahead of it. So we've got this thing pretty well thought out with what we're doing. And then, of course, Avenger comes in, and Avenger, while fulcoidin is very strong to support bacterial and viral systems, Avenger does some viral, but enormously effective on bacterial. So you have to decide what you want to use. But now we get into the other products. So those are what we've had, and the success is really great. But there's some other products you need to consider. The first one is the age pill. And there's, I've got a few studies, and I hope I can get through all this. I'll do it fast as I can. Here's a study. It says, it's titled, "Could NAD Change the COVID-19 Pandemic?" And it says one small drop of infected saliva contain tens of thousands of individual virus cells. And so the best defense mechanism is the body's own immune system, which is effective defense for young, healthy people. But as we age, our immune system becomes considerably weaker. There is a direct correlation between fatality from the coronavirus and age. And so what they've done here is they've gone through and looked at NAD with what it can do, and it says there's a growing body of scientific evidence that shows that immunity and NAD function are inextricably linked together. According to the research, efficient supply of NAD, which is what the age pill produces, is a precursor to NAD, seems to be a crucial need for a multitude of cell functions. We knew that already, underlying the potency of the small molecule to influence cell fate. Researchers find that NAD can trigger a response that protects us against these kinds of things because here's how it works if you want to know the science of it. NAD works on sirtuins to repair proteins and the immune system. That's right out of the study. The sirtuins there's 7 sirtuin genes, and they regulate all of our growth processes and that, but the one that regulates immunity most is SIRT1, they call it, sirtuin 1, and NAD is very powerful on contacting that one and eliciting a response from it. It's the way it normally happens. We're just supercharging, and when you do, then the body has the repair to its own abilities to regenerate, to repair, and to maintain itself if you provide the proper nutrients and you can remove the toxins and the waste. And that's really true. And so it says the SIRT2 or SIRT1, a transcription factor, will regulate inflammation and immune cell proliferation. So that is really something. And then it comes through and says the mitochondria are the powerhouses of immunity. Mitochondria are the little things within your cells, and what happens within the cells of your body, and they take in oxygen and a source like glucose, and they react it, explode it, release the energy. But doing that is an oxidative response, and over a lifetime, the mitochondria gets quite damaged. And so it starts leaking electrons. It's inefficient and it's not healthy. But what happens when you have sirtuin support, the sirtuins will come in and the mitochondria have its own DNA, different than yours. It has 12 sets of chromosomes. You have 23. But these 12 are designed to support mitochondria function and health. And the sirtuin genes, in studies that they have done with things like resveratrol, which is found in our eternity, but the age pill, which with NAD, is that the mitochondria can regenerate, rebuild itself, and actually, as it said in this article, proliferate too on top of it. So here is a major key to this, because as we get older, the NAD gets depleted, and the reservoir of it is essential to combating this immune dysfunction that takes on within our body, and so that we can maintain the cellular integrity. So that's one product right there. That's a lot. The second one, which is really quite interesting, I'm going to talk about the H2 stick, and I'm trying to get this fast because I wanted to clear it up in less than an hour, but I'm going to be there. But anyway, here's a report, and it says this: hydrogen medicine therapy, an effective, promising novel treatment for multiple organ dysfunction syndrome induced by influenza and other viral infectious diseases. Well, the lungs is the organ, and that's what this is targeted for. Now, the other flus, the other viruses, remember, these things, while we're talking about this for this coronavirus, this works on all viruses, this whole system. And so it talks about hydrogen, and it says hydrogen water has a surprising anti-inflammation. Now remember, that's the thing that causes the big damage in the lungs, is that inflammation. Antioxidant, so that neutralizes the harmful oxidating byproducts. Anti-apoptosis effects. Now what does that mean? Apoptosis is cellular suicide, and you have things like our senolytics takes aged stem cells that have become dormant, that are eliciting toxins, and provides an environment so the immune system can trigger the switch, and the cell dies, and then it reproduces as a brand new cell. So you're changing old, dangerous ones for young senolytics. I'm not recommending senolytics for this system in handling this, although it will help you overall to be doing that. But we're going to be more direct with the flu viruses here itself. But so it's anti-apoptosis. Now you can, it's spelled like apoptosis is how it's spelled, if you wanted to know that. So, and it's very effective against septic injury and periodontitis and all of these things that are decreasing the mass and the pro-inflammatory responses. So here we have a product that does it. And the other thing it says, coronavirus, the cells will release what they call is a cytokine, and you don't need to know all these things, an explosion, but it goes out and triggers a defensive system, inflammation to stop the circulation going so it can be spread. But the cytokine explosion does lots of harm with it. And with the H2, it works on it to keep that from happening. So now you have some, and then it goes through the cells, and it is a powerful energizer for all the cells in the body too. So you can see how good that is for doing the lungs. Now the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is something that's from out of nowhere. We've got it. It's one of our unknown secrets that we have in a product, and it's in a product we have called For Restore. Now, For Restore, I should do a whole day meeting on it because it has got so much power. But one of the things it does is it produces and nitric oxide. A lot of weightlifters will use products that'll increase NO, they call it, nitric oxide, because it improves the cardiovascular system so much, carries so much more nutrients. It regulates blood pressure better, reduces inflammation better, and all those factors, and helps you build muscle faster because of all those things coming together. So what I've done, but for most of us that are like me, not a fitness buff with it, my athletic days were, when they were over, I'm not interested in maintaining that level of fitness because it's kind of boring for me. But that way. And so I designed can sit there and become much healthier because of this running through their systems. But this study comes out, and that I'm reading here, it says nitric oxide studies show inhibition of the corona, and nitric oxide inhibits the replication cycle of what they call and it's a very signaling molecule between cells, and nitric oxide has been shown to have an inhibitory effect on virus infections. And in this study it says we found that significantly, and listen to this, they found it significantly inhibited the replication cycle of the coronavirus in a concentration-dependent manner. We show here that NO inhibits viral protein and RNA synthesis. So the virus needs all of this to live and to grow, and nitric oxide interferes with that, so it can't. So it breaks up the system that allows them to replicate. So here's a big level of support right here. And it says, furthermore, we demonstrate that nitric oxide generated produces or inhibits the COVID-19 replication cycle. Well, can you imagine that? Now, I'll tell you, there's other reasons you should use For Restore, and for a brief minute, I'll tell you what they are. I've designed this thing to go through to support rebuilding the body, and you have a couple of things that are there in your body. You have you have a hypothalamus region which regulates the pituitary, which regulates all the hormones. The products, the precursors to make that work much more efficiently, are there for Restore. I haven't played on that yet because some of the other things have been of higher priority, but now with this type of thing, it's good you should know it. You can take this because the one thing is hormonal levels go down, they get dysfunctional, and this the ingredients that this is a precursor to brings them back and regulates them, so you can have much more hormonal function within your body and all of the responses that come from that. In addition to that, we work through many of the specific systems that are within the body, the entire neurological system, the cardiovascular system. This thing is a body toddy on steroids, if you will, and it's very powerful to use. So only got 2 more to go, and I'll be done here. But the next one I'm going to talk about is just kind of crazy thing, is pomegranate juice. But pomegranate juice has a very powerful influence on interfering with replication of viruses. So if you're going to drink a juice, make yours be pomegranate. And pomegranate is the only one. In addition, pomegranate, with many of these systems we're already talking about, including the fulvic acid that's in the body shield, makes it much more effective in it. And they have studies that they had it with and without, and the two of them together made it even more effective with that and the ingredients that are in influence and those kinds of things. So if you're looking for a juice to drink, if you're going to drink something, I think you're going to probably may end up wiping out the pomegranate juice stores in addition to that. So that's the other one. The last one is to have a cleaner that can clean and has the ability to inhibit or remove viruses and other things like that. And to do some serious cleaning, where you can spray with Terminator and you have the purifying effect of all the contamination that's there. You really need a cleaner for use around the house. So Tom Jr. has taken this one on, and he's producing one. It'll be out before very long, and it's based on a couple of other things, ionic silver and types of copper. And copper is extremely effective against viruses. It needs a little bit more contact time, but it leaves the resistance too. So it's got some real power. That's coming down the chute. So anyway, you can see I've talked as fast as I could go on this thing. And we've gone through all of these products that we have. We've got the main products that are there, the Cucumber line, the Terminator, Body Shield, Influence, Fucoid, and Avenger. Then we're recommending the Age Pill, H2 Stick, for Restore. Take pomegranate juice, and you're gonna do what nobody in the world could diagnose or recommend for you to do, because number one, they don't know it. Because number two, they haven't looked for it. But the science is all there. I found it. I've known much of this for years. I've been putting together more things from it. So I've simply put them all together. It's not that I have a great genius for this. What I have is the ability to understand the concepts and things, and my mind will sort them out and put them together in meaningful ways that work. And so that's what I've done. So now with these people that are being afflicted with the virus, it's time to make a choice. I have some relatives, and here's one little story I'll just tell you. Had some relatives, and they called me up. Of course, one thing about relatives, they want free products. And so they called up and said, we got some products we can use for this because we're really worried about this coronavirus. And I said, sure. And so I sent them out a bunch of products to use for nothing. I told them what to use, and it was the Megamune system was there. And they were using the products, and one of their sons, guess what, comes down with the coronavirus. And they called me up on that, And I said, how could that happen? I can't see how it could feasibly happen. And they said, well, he wasn't taking the products or taking them regularly at all. And I said, oh my God, he's proven Forrest Gump was right when he said, stupid is as stupid does. Now those are relatives, you can get away with that kind of stuff with it. I said, that is incredible. Here it cost him nothing. Here it's right there. All he has to do is take out a few things and swallow them with a glass of water, and he doesn't do it. Now he's got the coronavirus. Now he's contaminating all of you. And if he's got the coronavirus, it's probably gone through that 14-day incubation period, and you might have it in your system too, and it's going through that incubation period. I said, you need to isolate him. You need to really double down on all these ingredients and get yourself back in shape. But what that tells you is the nature of many people. They're not in the habit of doing it, so they won't get in the habit of doing it, but enough will if you explain it right. But a lot of people, I've seen people where there's been curable diseases where they have died because they didn't believe or didn't want to take a chance on an ingredient or some things that were available for them to do it. And that's the nature of people to a degree. So you play the game with cards that you're dealt. And so there are some people that will do that, but there are many people that are interested. And since it is raging, and it's definitely going to get worse before it gets better, tell me where you would find a solution like this. We have it like no other company in the world. You have got the opportunity of a lifetime to help so many people. But if you're going to be like these people that are unemployed, oh, I haven't got any money, I can't buy the product. My God, all you got is time on your hands. Get to work with that time instead of sitting around watching TV or whatever else you're doing. Get calling people on social media, telling them what these products are. You can get the information. You can listen to the call. You can write down some things. You can make presentations to friends and relatives and acquaintances. And guess what? Most of them are darn interested in what you've got to say. So that's what I would suggest that you do, because you have an opportunity to help lots of people. And you also, going with it, coincidentally, you have an opportunity to build a huge business on top of this. Now, we just launched the Road to Immortality products, and those are the greatest discoveries in the history of human health that's on the system. But we've had to set that aside because the coronavirus has got publicity like I've never seen in my lifetime on anything, and it's stealing the show. So since we already had most of the products, well, all of those in Megamune, we spun on a dime, spit out change, and brought the products out right now, and now we're even embellishing it even further for you. So now I've got studies on MeWe.com. So you can see a lot of these things and go there and get them if you want it to back. Now, some of these are scientific studies, so just read the abstract, maybe at the first, a conclusion at the rear. The rest of it is mumbo-jumbo, scientific mumbo-jumbo. But if you read the front, the opening, and the conclusions, you'll get to see what these things do. So I'm publishing those to help you in what you're doing because it's legal for me to do that. And so there you go. You have it laid out in your hands. You have the greatest publicity in the history of our lifetimes that's ever happened on anything, and it's right here, and people are scared to death of it. It's running wild with it. People want results. People are, in some places, are dying in huge numbers. Infections are in huge numbers. And the bad thing about this is with this virus, it does permanent long-term damage to you. In fact, as every flu does. So this is one thing to remember, too. When flu season's there around, you ought to be using these products because they all cause irreparable damage. And some of you may have seen some of my reports where I showed a picture of the brain and chicken tracks on the brain, and it looks like the chickens walked all over the brain, and it's because of where the viruses attacked the brain, and then it was killed by the immune system, and it left scar tissue. So it lowers IQ, it reduces memory, things like that, and it's working in other organs to affect them too. So not getting the flu is the best thing that can happen to you, not because of the time that you're sick, but because of the long-term health damage that can occur from it too. So I could talk about this forever, it seems like. I spent the weekend researching this, so I had the right things for you to tell you. These are amazing new things. So if you took the Mega Immune System and then you added the Age Pill and the H2 Stick and 4 Restore and drank pomegranate juice, son of a gun, would you have a program going for you? You can bulletproof yourself. I think you bulletproof yourself without these others, but why not make new versatile things like NAD from the Age Pill, so powerful to help to support the regeneration of a decrepit immune system so it will rebuild itself and function like it should. That's a lot. And then hydrogen going right into the heart of the inflammation and knocking the dog out of it in the lungs and providing huge amounts of energy with that. And then 4 Restore, we have nitric oxide interfering with the replicative enzymes of the virus so that they don't come together the way they're supposed to, and the virus cannot replicate. And then, of course, you go back to the big one of them all, and that's a body shield that just coats the virus, encapsulates it, captures it, and holds it in abeyance. So and I won't go through the others because of time, but I mean, what an arsenal and array you have to attack this program. Does it cost some money? Yeah. Is it a little expensive? Maybe. Depends on your financial situation. But I'll tell you what, death is very expensive because you lose everything you've got. And that possibility is there. But bad health is horrible. Who wants to spend the last 10, 15 years of their life in a nursing home? We think we got the answers to those. But one of these things, when you have something like this come, we are addressing it in spades. Like medicine can't, and they admit it. Dietary supplements, they don't know. On a few little things here, echinacea will improve the immune system. Gee, eminently. That's the kind of things they have out. Not with us. These are complex, powerful formulations like's never been created before on planet Earth, and you alone have them. So that's my message for today. I'll turn the time back over to you, DW, and I wish all of you the very best in health and success in what you're doing, and this is your moment in time. So get that rear end gear. If you're out of work, get to work and build a life for yourself.